Last week, I came to the floor and brought forward the proof that the Biden administration allowed an Iranian influence operation to infiltrate our government. And they compromised one of the most sensitive weapons negotiations in our nation's history. It was only after the media and Senate Republicans exposed this ongoing threat to our national security that the Biden administration agreed to investigate it. So, as I said last week, I sent a letter to the Pentagon demanding to know why Biden administration officials granted these operatives top secret security clearances and sent them to negotiate with the very adversaries that once they worked for those adversaries. But today, I want to remind my colleagues of another influence operation that we have known for a long time, which requires no security clearance and no special access to government documents. For years, TikTok has been under scrutiny for its ties to the Chinese Communist Party. We know that this company openly violates basic privacy standards, puts user data in the hands of the CCP, and subjects U.S. users to Chinese influence operations. Almost 100 million Americans have this app on their phone. And the Biden administration, they have had very little to say about this. In fact, the president himself has embraced it as a tool to rehabilitate his failed policies with young voters. He has invited TikTok influencers to the White House. Still, my colleagues and I have made it impossible for the Biden administration to totally ignore the threat. TikTok has been in negotiations with the Committee on Foreign Investment in the U.S. It is known as CFIUS. They're in negotiations on a potential framework called, and I am quoting them, Project Texas, that will supposedly keep Americans' data secure and make it impossible for Beijing to manipulate the flow of information in the app. A core component of these discussions involves measures to separate TikTok from its Chinese parent company, ByteDance. But of course, we're already seeing the CCP find creative ways to get around that firewall. As you know, they have a habit of doing this with their propaganda schemes, whether it's Confucius classrooms, Confucius institutes, sister city programs, or a social media app, TikTok. The Wall Street Journal reported last week that this year TikTok has transferred many high-level executives from ByteDance to TikTok in the United States. These executives are leading major divisions at TikTok, which provides the CCP with a significant degree of influence over the way they do business. The personnel changes undermine TikTok's independence from ByteDance, and there's no chance that this happened by accident. It's clear what TikTok is doing. They are repurposing ByteDance employees to masquerade as TikTok employees, undercutting the guardrails against Chinese espionage. We know that with the Confucius Institute, many of these professors that came our way were indeed connected and sent there by the Chinese Communist Party. Over the past 3 years, it has become clear that we cannot rely on the Biden administration to follow through on its promises to protect and defend this country and the citizens of this country. They fall behind repeatedly, especially when it's politically inconvenient to do so. So today, Senator Blumenthal and I sent a letter to the CEO of TikTok demanding to know how many of his employees are former ByteDance employees. What are their jobs? What are the security protocols? and the other rules are going to be imposed on these transfers? These are questions that we need the answers to. We also want to know if these personnel changes were disclosed to CFIUS before the Wall Street Journal published its article. And Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to submit the letter to the record.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now, we know that popular opinion would have each and every one of us believe that the threat posed by TikTok just isn't that serious. And we know from experience that the White House dislikes challenging popular opinion. After all, we hear, this is just an app that kids like to use. This is just a silly app with videos. This is an app that is putting up challenges. There's nothing wrong here. But what we do know, Mr. President, is that TikTok gathers all of this information. They have insight into the virtual you. Once they're on your phone, they are following where you go, what you do, gathering keystrokes, and building that profile. And we know this information leaves the U.S., and we know this information makes its way to Beijing. Why do they think they need this information on U.S. citizens? Why do they think they need to follow U.S. citizens? All of this is a reason that CFIUS is reviewing TikTok. This country can no longer afford to take the word of our adversaries at face value. Soft propaganda, that's what the Chinese Communist Party is all about. They see that as a way to infiltrate our society, to infiltrate public opinion, to infiltrate and to influence in elections. This is not the first letter Senator Blumenthal and I have sent to TikTok demanding transparency, and I would imagine this is not going to be the last. I know it is very difficult to accept that a silly video app that is liked by 100 million Americans could possibly pose a threat to our national security. But we believe that it does. And I would remind my colleagues, and indeed anyone who has not deleted this spy app from their phones, please recognize the threat that is there and do not provide your information to one of our greatest adversaries.